This etude is designed to challenge the player to think beyond the notes of the page, specifically to isolate the melodic notes from the stagnant ones. This etude's mainly in G major, using the 5th scale degree D as a kind of drone. Let's pretend for a second that those repetitive notes don't exist. Play only the main melodic material for the first 4 measures, as if you're drawing a horizontal line to separate the Ds and the moving notes above them. Play the melody slurred in tempo, as if the Ds were simply not there, and shape it musically as you feel it should be. Do this for the entire etude. Find where the melody repeats, where it changes, and make sure to check your fingerings if there are any intonation or speaking issues. Once you've got the flow and the phrasing of the melody ingrained in your mind, slow down your tempo a bit to add the repeating Ds at a pace you feel is comfortable. Now, I know what you're thinking. The repeating Ds call for the whisper key, while almost every other note needs venting, flicking, or half-hole to speak clearly. This is a challenge that calls for my favorite question. Which do you think is more important when striving for technical perfection? The whisper key on the Ds, or venting and flicking? We have to choose one. When approaching a new etude or piece, the answer to this question can usually be found in self-assessment through experimentation. Try the first 4 measures, focusing on the whisper key for the Ds. Try it again, this time with a focus on venting, flicking, and half-hole, without the whisper key. Which one sounds more accurate to you? Of course, you already know what I'm going to say. Option 2 is highly recommended to make sure every note speaks, but it comes with a catch. Slurring down on the bassoon is notoriously difficult without some kind of voicing manipulation, and the fact that D has the same fingering in 2 octaves makes it even more of a stretch to get those middle Ds to speak clearly. Make sure you have a really flexible reed and practice saying "ee-yo" to understand the movement you should feel in the back of your throat when you have large slurred leaps down. If you watched my video on Weissenborn 17, you may remember that I told you to always lengthen the second note of slurs between 2 notes. Here in number 18, I want you to do the exact opposite. Cutting off the lower note of each slur is not only what Weissenborn intended with those staccatos, but it also gives your brain and fingers more time to accurately anticipate the next note. A great exercise to make sure you're doing all of this correctly is to practice with a drone set on the repeated notes. Play the first 4 measures at a very slow tempo with the drone, so you know exactly how much movement you need in your voicing to accurately tune each note. Then, go back and practice it in a solid tempo with the D's cut off this time, only pausing on a D if you really feel like you aren't matching the drone. One of the toughest parts of any etude or solo with repeated gestures is how to anticipate the inevitable pattern changes. Weissenborn gets us so used to this 4-bar phrase with a repeating D that when he changes it to an E, an A, or just a bunch of different notes like in measure 53 and 54, it's a shock. For these situations, I recommend a technique I call building block practicing. Remember in the beginning of this explanation when I told you to pretend to draw a horizontal line between the high and the low notes? Apply this idea to measure 53 and 54. Practice these high and low lines separately to create your first building blocks. Get used to how they feel. Now, add them together very slowly with the correct articulations. Do this at least 3 times to make sure your muscle memory is starting to develop. If you're really struggling to play the notes accurately, use different rhythm patterns like dotted eighths, sixteenths, or triplets in order to build that muscle memory even more. Once you get comfortable, try playing it at a slightly faster tempo, perhaps 5 beats per minute more. Continue to do this until you reach a tempo where you feel you're going to lose the notes if you don't focus your hardest. This is going to be your tempo for the entire etude. Now, let's add some more building blocks. Staying in your new tempo, add the first 2 beats of measure 55 to the 2 measures you've been practicing. Then, add measure 52. Add measure 51. Add the entire phrase before and after those 2 measures we isolated. If the transition's still rough, the tempo needs to be slower, or you need to keep working on those 2 measures a bit more. It'll be really impressive when you can show up to your lesson and keep a steady tempo through measures 53 and 54. One look at this page is intimidating. All those leaps, tons of black ink, and then those accents. There are accents on almost every beat. To me, these accents aren't like the ones you'd play in band. Super hard tongues, standout accents. No, these are accuracy accents. In order to get a clean attack on every high note, you'll need a combination of a deliberate tongue, a bit of space before the accent itself, helped by the staccato lower notes, and the absolute correct fingering, aided by some combination of venting, flicking, left pinky, and half hole. Another reason Weissenborn might have written all those accents on the page is simply to point out the composite melody. Those are the notes that make this etude musical, and they should be emphasized as such.